All right, everybody. Sorry for the late stream today. I had some stuff going on earlier, so yeah. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be playing some more Code Vein here. I am going to basically be doing some of the depths that I have left, trying to maybe find the final vestiges and basically do like wrap up stuff, like, kind of like backs out some items before we go ahead and finish off the final boss. So let me go ahead and hop in the game here, and we're gonna turn the music off. And hopefully you guys can hear the game. I've turned it up, so shouldn't be an issue. OBS over here. Hell yeah. Alright. So
Honestly,
what I'm thinking is
this is all we've got for available routes.
I have these last two depths.
It's unexplored territory from here on.
And I think Havoc was gonna help me, so I am, but I'm pressing.
Don't get too wild out there. Making sure your gear is good.
So while we wait for her, I will probably go ahead and just start doing some clearing. Hopefully I don't die. Alright, first. It's over there. Start with the right. Got one more skill that I'm trying to level up on. Jack's fourth code here.
Bring it any time. What's that?
And that there.
Enemy right by us.
Probably gonna cross the track pretty soon.
Pick up something we can use?
I really just need tungsten now, pretty much. There we go. Havoc is loading in. Woo! Hell yeah. Horns and everything. Mastery. Oh yeah. What's this? There it is. Grants debuff buildup, regardless of the user's. Oh. Be here. Hey Annie, what's up? Yeah. That guy came out of nowhere. Of course, I wasn't looking, so.
Leave it to me.
Vestiges. Have them all other than IOs.
That's a nice thing
Okay,
to have
good.
around.
Up on a box here. It's on. Okay. Yeah, I think I saw in that video I was watching yesterday. There's a you have to fight one of these, but she's like pretty much a joke. So it's just gonna be like a whole bunch of. I feel like it is. Kind of what it looks like it's gonna happen.
Time to kick ass. This is the real thing. How's this?
That was kind of underwhelming. I was expecting to be overrun by dudes, but I guess we killed it fast enough that it they didn't dude pile on me. Oh wait,
You have to take whatever you can use.
They wake up more if you around. Oh. Well, good thing we didn't move around a lot. I mean, it's not like a super huge deal, so. I was just expecting a little bit more. Some more chaos there. It didn't happen. This area. No hidden vestiges or anything. I feel like Davis left all of his memories in the damn depths, pretty much. Very, very casual about leaving memories behind. Alright. This, you know, I kind of wish this game had, like, some more music or something going on, like in between. It's so quiet till there's like actually
The Lost are over there. Oh, what is that? You have to take whatever you can use. That's a real gem.
Oh yeah.
I think we can put that to good use. Thanks, friend.
Slapped her down.
You demonstrated your skills nicely.
My comrades and I were sent out following
yeah.
a report about stolen
I think that's what I was
weapons.
looking for.
Our investigation led us to a revenant settlement.
Yeah. Must be,
Hold on. I'm on my way.
places, was it Tasha, Natalie? Random? Lowe's Davis. Naomi. Has big ooh eyes for Davis. Can't even see what the is.
That's a big help. Let's do this. You're a godsend. Stay focused.
Come on. they had a smidgen of health left.
Hey,
Aw.
you okay?
That's okay.
Our gear might not be cutting it.
That is not the case, man. The gear's fine. Just fucked up and got hit, that's all. You fucked up and died. So, how about that, Yakima? Dude. We got it this time. Now that I know what I'm even fighting. Hey.
It's still far off, but I see movement. Bring it any time.
Sucks is like when enemies have full arms, like
You got something we can
swing,
use?
like, maybe like fuck. Tell me.
There you are.
It's done.
That didn't take too much effort.
This time. Be a little more confidence, I guess.
Don't worry about me. I won't get you. That's a big help.
Insane.
Slow down. Finish it.
Good job, yeah. No!
Lost that.
Dang. How dare they slap my wife? It's not okay. Yeah, I saw that. Well, it sucks is like, as you're getting up from the res, they're still like wailing on you, so it's like, it's not like you can move out of the way or fucking block or anything. They're just like throwing hands like they're in a fucking mosh pit. Woo, you're back. Let's go. Hey, you know, if it takes us a little bit to complete the steps, that's totally fine.
Don't run too far ahead.
How about you run faster? You have long legs, Yakima. Just saying. Gonna go slap some more enemies. Word. You allergies. I hate you. It's just. That bugs.
Loss could spring up anywhere here.
There's a box there, or no, where is it? They're like, hey, this might be important. Yep. lady
Ah,
over there.
appreciate it. Got something for you.
Stupid dagger that I don't care about.
Well,
He's the
mosey.
senior. Holy mother.
The decision is yours.
From a long line of weird penis people. Whoever the person was, they brought us such joy to them. I was so happy when we found it on the pillar at MagFest. I was like, this is true talent. Well-worn tool. Probably.
Oh, that's
Yep.
that's a nice thing to have around. Thanks, friend.
How dare you turn the face when I'm sneaking up on you?
Okay, that's one flag down. Here it comes.
He's just randomly switching target. Leave it alone.
Bring it anytime. How's this? That's all cleaned up. Admire your guts. You have to take whatever you can use.
So. God. Wait, we don't have to fight a boss over here? Good. Oh.
That's a big help.
Yeah. Like, literally lights the way, and I'm just like, nah, man. I don't know where the boss is. I don't see no boss.
Uh-huh. Ah, appreciate it.
It's two big ladies.
No harm in being prepared. That's
Single shiny. Right. Put the boss for this. Let's see. Might be. Use. Totally gonna beat up this boss. Excuse me. Perfect. Jeez.
Sorry. Moving out.
Excuse me. Oh my god. So gross.
Head up, eyes open.
Ooh. That sucks.
That one sure does swagger.
So this is like that.
I appreciate
that
it.
Queen's Knight. Wrecking the ship.
Bring it anytime. How's this?
Oh my god. Jesus.
Feeling better?
Good little sound when it gets sad.
No harm. Prepare. Get ready. Refocus.
Oh my god.
Hey,
Oh, we almost had it. Right? Like, I think we did alright. Just gotta attack him more, I guess. History. Do this skill. Change my. Let's do something new. Switch my blood code up because I don't think I'm getting crazy. Or it's so weird. Get some more. So. Okay. It's bad. Stuff. Where are you? Really do Yakima. Alright. Seems like it might work a little bit better. That's... Oh shit. Hold on, I'm sorry. I know you just responded, but I gotta heal real quick. Okay. Now I can. Alright. Surely this time will be different. We're gonna have a lot more defense going on, so that's
Ready for this? That's a big help. Bring it anytime.
That was like much easier. Hell yeah. I mean, other than like some stamina issues, that wasn't too bad. Hell yeah. Got my
Glad we didn't lose that.
here. Fuck yeah. Alright, so that's one down. Got some tungstens. Means I can go finish off some stuff. We're back. Yeah, I'm level 200. Woo! I'm so beefcake. I think the top level is 300, so 100 more levels to go. We can do it. Alright, let's see. Sure, yeah, it took a lot there, so.
Which blood veil do you
I'm
want to
gonna
upgrade?
Veil. This one does a whole heck of defense on it. Really took damage.
What do you want to upgrade?
Goes so weird. Ricky Sickle. Ripper Ricky. I guess I'll finish off. Eva's. I'll have
Make sure you get.
Fallacious left freaking. Yeah, okay, cool. So I have a vestige, so
What is
watch
it?
that. I think I have. Yep, here we go. And then I've got 2 of Ios, and then I've got all the vestiges. Alright, let's see what's going on with
My
me.
comrades and I were sent out following a report about stolen blood beads. Our investigation led us to a revenant settlement. What we discovered there was far worse than some missing blood beads. Instead, we found humans being used as livestock. And among them was a woman I recognized. Her name was Jessica. She was the missing fiancée Davis had been searching for all this time.
It's being used as a free
Any
song.
beings that we rescued were sent to a government shelter. Those were the rules, and there were no exceptions. I checked around until I found a good facility, then put in a request that she be placed there. Maybe not the best life, but at least she wouldn't be tormented by revenants anymore. She said she was looking for her fiancé, a man named Tyrone, but I was unable to help her.
Tyrone.
That's not it. I made a choice not to help her. I felt that if I did, the man I knew as Davis would disappear.
You made the decision for him.
I knew I should tell Davis about Jessica. I even tried to do it on more than one occasion. But when I thought about what he'd do if he knew she was still alive, I couldn't bring myself to do it. The words just got stuck in my throat. Please forgive me, Davis.
You would probably just go get her.
I know that I'm a coward.
He could have had 2 wives, okay? You could have talked this out as adults. As vampire adults.
You know, I'd almost given up. I thought those memories were truly gone forever. Naomi, I'm so sorry. I was hurting you all that time.
Yeah,
And I never
exactly.
even realized it. Thank you so much for helping Jessica. It's impossible to express just how grateful I am. No, it's better this way. Even if I had found her again, I didn't want to approach her. Revenants and humans cannot live together. As long as she's safe now, that's enough for me.
Why not?
I'll keep living my life as Davis. I'll hold on to the memory of Naomi, who loved me. And from the shadows, I'll work to keep Jessica safe. You have my deepest thanks. Because of you, my life has hope again.
I mean, she might want to see you, dude. You guys were engaged. He does have tiny feet. Little pitter-patter feet. They're so cute. Tiny ass feet, bro. Tyrone. Let's see, I should be able to get his final blood code. So, where is it? There it is. Let's do increases damage dealt by charged rates. Get little kitty beats. That'd be very silly. But I would like it. It would be so silly. Alright, so let's max that. Let's see. Ow. Let's see here. Damn. Alright, I got one thing left on E. I got some stuff I gotta get for IO here. Probably look up where I get that other vestige, because you said there's one in the government center. Where do I get the other one? Need her with us for that. Okay. Oh my god, I already have to use the bathroom. I'll be right back. Less than 5 minutes, guy, I promise. Okay, I'm back. I guess what I'll do next is I'll
Honestly,
do that last, depths.
I'll lead the way. Just tell me where we're going. Don't be overeager.
So
Come
we're
back
going
immediately
to
if you sense danger. Understood?
Void Zone. I'll have to go back and look. I need to see if I have any, like, wandering NPC quests left. Well, I just want to make sure I do everything before I go to fight Silva. So, all right, I'm in distress.
Let's get going.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I've visited all those areas, but it doesn't hurt to check. tank he wants built on.
Make sure you're good and set before we go.
There she is. Silver garb. Ew. I'm covered in tinfoil. So fancy. Alright.
Enemy spotted. Rush him. No harm in being prepared. Much obliged.
Way less mobile.
You have to take whatever you can use.
That's it. I was kind of like a
big help.
glass cannon before, just relying on ninjas, so. Just swing for the fences. Cool, lots of
Below us, huh?
dogs. Good boys. Good boys.
Let's keep it up.
It's super cool. Got some more instead. So. Is
I
it
see
a trap?
something.
Who knows? It's a trap.
It's a real gem. Ah, bring it any
Look at
time.
that. Of course it's a trap. Why do I even ask these questions? Ask stupid questions, get stupid answers.
I knew this.
Jesus. They were just like, fuck Havoc. We're like, we can't have demon lords in our vampire world.
No harm in being prepared.
Alright. Did it.
Yeah, that was a fight.
Yeah, I'd say so. So slow in this build. I mean, I'm not taking like a lot of damage, which is good.
Got
Like,
something we
taking,
can
like,
use?
Way less damage than I was before. But it's a major cost to like my mobility. My mobility. One more tungsten. Okay. Let's go up the boss. Watch all the bosses for this area be like something crazy. Hopefully I didn't speak that into existence. He's like, fungus. Wait, I've heard.
Sorry. Moving out. That's a big help. Bring it anytime.
Let's go.
Let's do this.
Oh, one of them is.
Here I got it. Stay focused. Thanks, Brad. That's that, I guess.
Wasn't so bad. It's all because you look really cool. That's why it went so well. Peace. I mean, I put some buffs on too, so.
Hold on.
I put an extra
on my way.
shield on us too. Oh, nice. Good call. This definitely helped. Nice. Only like 2 passed. Did I leave you? I'm sorry. I'm coming. I'm coming. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to leave you. Oh, you left me. Oh no. The heck? I got kicked off of offline mode. That kind of sucks. Because I think in order to go back into online mode, I have to like go all the way back out. Because it's saying that I'm in offline mode for some reason. Alright, I'm gonna try the other branch. Just because I don't really want to restart right now.
This is a better place to fight.
But if I get my ass pushed in, then I'll restart. Oh my god, just like an immediate fucking gauntlet. That's so rude. Oh, the fire guy's not Mostly
out?
Yakumo did it, but I did it.
Lost or really Bring close. It any time. You pick up something we can use?
Ooh, a dagger. Things I totally need.
How's this? Don't mess with the best, right?
These. There. Let's see. Yeah, let's get it. Let's see.
Oh.
So is that guy.
Ah, I appreciate it. This is the real thing. No longer being compared.
This guy.
Bring it anytime. You're a godsend. No harm being prepared. Get ready. How's this?
So glitched out there for a second.
Get ready. Finish it. Bring it anytime.
Yeah. We did it. That's probably all Yakumo, but we did it. Probably use some ease before I boss. Oh, I bet you the boss is the two of them together.
Branch in the path.
Oh man. Wait. Would have been that.
Hey, that's...
Oh hell yeah, tungsten. Get a lot of tungsten.
You have to take whatever you can use. Oh, that's...
An RV vest. Oh yeah. Ah, this chest might be a trap.
Let's open it up and see, shall we?
Nope. Black bayonet slow. Okay. So let's see. The boss is, I'm pretty sure it's probably the fastest fuck and the fat guy.
Don't run too far ahead.
We're gonna see if I can do it. If I can't do it, then I'll restart. Oh, or Mito. Yeah, didn't think about that. Just
Who knows
to
what's waiting through
find them
here.
out. Yep, that's cool.
That one sure
They're a
does swagger.
little farther apart from each other.
It's a big help.
So if I can keep them kind of away from each other.
Bring it anytime. How's this?
Oh, target her. No! It's just fucking decides who it's gonna target.
How's this? Much obliged.
No!
You're back up, huh?
Okay, let me see if I can restart the game real quick, if that'll make a difference. Wait, will I lose all my... Oh well, I don't really care. Haste isn't that... Alright. We're gonna beat their ass. The two of us will wombo combo them. Surely that's what's gonna happen.
Okay, let's get going.
That said, I do stay alive long. Not gonna focus on. Yeah, glad I don't have to wait. Oh, my haze is still there. But yeah.
It's a big help. Good. We grab that. Bring it any real thing.
Oh my god. Oh my god. What the fuck? Why did they get so much harder?
Hey.
What the fuck? No, no, they were not that rough a second ago.
Were we unprepared?
They saw you and they were like, fuck your shit.
Make sure you're good and set before we go.
We'll get him this time. I think I gotta, like, lure her away from the fat guy. Because if he's nearby, he just hits us with fire, like, underneath our feet. It's really annoying. There.
Time for some payback, huh? Ah, I appreciate it. No harm in being prepared.
stuff. Alright, maybe,
Really had me worried.
maybe not this build so much. I think I'm a little too slow. So, actually, hold on. Just in case. One of these be a little bit. Or any better stamina. Feel like it's- bowl. I don't like just the regular bowl. Maybe I need more decks for to be able quicker. Decks. Hey, Cacho, how's it going? Vegeta. That being bad. Trying to figure out how to climb up into the top of the closet. Appearance fade. Here, good build. Hell yeah, nice. That sounds fun. Being stacked. That's probably okay. I am industry. We're gonna get this down. Still kind of. Not like the cool guy slot. I don't know if that's just on jacks, but sometimes I have like a much better dodge. I wonder if it's when I have higher decks, I have standard roll kind of sucks. Oh well, we'll try it. Your weight affects all that. Maybe... You know what? Maybe what I'm wearing is too... We'll try this one. Oh, yeah. Really cool. But yeah. Right. That'll help. Still not. Yeah, that's better. I don't know. It's doing this like really cool slidey thing on one of these. Oh well, let's try this.
Ready for this?
Feel like I'm faster.
Ah, I appreciate it. No harm in being prepared.
Fire under my feet. It's so annoying.
Thanks for being prepared.
Take her out. Alright, I took her out. What happened? Oh. Okay, so he has ice ability. Ooh, I didn't think that would go that far.
Bring it anytime.
Not my best.
It's like I have such a small window to heal.
Get ready. How's this? Holding up.
Did it.
No harm in being prepared.
Yeah! Yeah! Hell yeah. Suck it.
Glad we didn't lose that.
Nice. Perfect. Alright, let's see what I can upgrade. Yeah, being a little faster helps.
Don't. Which blood veil do you want to upgrade?
What do you want to upgrade?
Doesn't have like a crazy amount of defense, but it definitely helps. I mean, eventually I'm gonna get enough to have all of these maxed. So. Like, should
Make sure you get back safe.
hell yeah. Alright. Let's see. Level. Nope. Holy shit. I'm blazed now. Alright, so let me go teleport to all the boss places to see if I missed any of. Oh, wait. Let me see. How many IOs do I have left for vestiges? Hers are the only ones that I have left. Okay, so 2. Let me go check all the boss spots to see if I missed any of those. And then I know there's one, like you said, when we go to the it would only be the ones that have the successors, right? Oh, it's the science chick again. What up?
Oh, we meet again. How have you been? I'm going through the successor data I collected again as part of my research. While I agree with Mito's end goal, his means were utterly abominable. I'll find my own way to save humanity. Just you wait.
That's so
Here's
positive.
hoping we find something interesting.
Oh, we meet again. I'm going through this while I'll find my...
Okay. Alright, so no vestige here. What up, doggo? So the next one is Nico. We're just gonna double check. Yeah, exactly. Turns his sword to the side and just like home runs her off into the distance. His stupid little Ooh, presents. There's another kitty.
Sorry. Moving out.
If it's not there. Oh yeah. Yeah, I think I might have talked about this, but I'll check it in a second. See if this is the one I missed. If not, I'm gonna have to look it up. Like where the hell the other ones are. pick this one up, but I'll keep running just in case. In case it's all the way back here. A lot of sand. Okay. Shit. Alright, well, let me look it up. Vestiges. Okay. Alright, there's 2 in... Well, actually, there's 3 in the governments. One is for defeating the attended relics. Their provisional government outskirts center, work out loud. Oh. No, one can be found in the dropped on the ground on the northeast. So there's the last 2 are in the government center. So I guess that's what we should do. Go to the government center. I mean, I probably won't need help with the attendant, but we can beat her ass, so that's fine.
Making sure your gear is good.
Yeah, I mean, I'll bring her. Why not? I mean, she's a pretty good partner.
Let's be off then.
Let's see. Start. Change my blood code back. See if I can get some levels on anything that I need to finish off here. She's just lurking there, like I don't have to fight
I
her
will keep
eventually.
watch.
Like, so dumb. All right. So got that one. Oh, kill. Look at this. So I'll put this one in so I can.
Its body is covered with roots.
So, there we go. The strips.
And in any case, there is little we can do.
Just fucks off on me. Oh yeah, and I have to find the last little bit of research here for this.
It's quite durable.
Alright. Perfect. Prefer ash. That's fine. I thought I could hit him when he was going around the corner. I was wrong.
This is a bad place to fight.
My bad. Totally whipping that attack.
We can certainly use this. Beautiful. I sense a hostile presence in the distance.
That does so much damage. Oh, he's dead. I was like, what happened? Where'd he go? I think I just pop the shit out of him. We didn't really need to go down. That's my bad. Okay.
It's all in how you
Thorns in
use it.
there, so...
The walls here are dangerous.
You can do it, Havoc. There we go. Kill some dudes. Ow. Christ. Getting a lot of these things for awakening my skills, so that's
The Lost are on patrol here.
that did like shit for damage. Slap. Or down. I don't know if I've been down this way.
I'll be there soon.
Do we?
We will not be fooled.
Making sure.
Maybe something up above. Did you find something good? One of them is on watch. Stay out of sight. They are waiting for us.
Get slowed. What the heck? What did he hit me with? That hurt so bad. Oh my god. I have no idea what he hit me with. Jesus Christ. Hi. goes over here.
There's a path up there. Times like these require careful observation. Good. Enemy spotted. Be careful. Are we going to... Be careful you don't fall.
Be careful you don't fall. Jesus Christ, dude. Oh my god. Crazy.
Did I play my part well?
I got a couple heals left. Yeah, no. No, you didn't. I am sorry. Maybe we should start at the other Mistle? What do you think? Rest it there. Let's go to the other one. That's the wrong. Oh, the field boss you were talking about. I teleported to the wrong. I'm a dummy. Excuse me. Christ, I can't stop burping. I'm an asshole. Leave them bloody. Too bad this blood code is kind of weak. You know, I got like it's although I have the just level skills from you. Alright, let me change my mode. Just go back. Like this way. I was trying to level up Scout. Oh. Yeah, it hasn't budged. Okay. You know what? I'll just keep it on. It'll be fine. If we struggle too much, then I'll switch it. I'm gonna follow you. Has you been here? Wait, the attendant was back there. I've talked to her. Oh well.
Did you find something good?
It's super weird. These like tentacle.
We have to choose one way or the other.
I think I've been this way. Or have I? Oh, is this the attendant boss right here? Can we beat her ass? Let's beat her
I'll
ass.
make good use of this. Watch yourself.
Right. Alright, so that gave us a vestige. Hell yeah. Yes. Oh no. Oh, now I can't send a distress signal. Fuck. Use an item to go back to it. Okay.
Our mission, our purpose for existence, is to stay by the successors' sides and ease their suffering. There is only one path for us, to fulfill the duty we have been entrusted with.
No, I can't send a distress signal now. Why? Boo. Alright, let's see how I do on this. That kinda sucks. Alright, where? It's a piece of evidence. Alright, we're gonna try to raw dog it here.
You've got sharp senses.
As I run into a dead end. You've got sharp senses. You found a dead end very easily. A dead end. Right. Confuse myself. I think it's because I'm getting hungry too. Okay. This is
We will not be fooled.
through. Alrighty. Hit the... Let's see if I can go up around this way. Then this way. Has I been down that way? The boss. Go pick up.
I do not know what awaits us at the end, but I will stand at your side until it is all over. I will fight. That much I do know.
The map says it's like back a little to the right.
Is that lost really by itself? Look at that.
Oh yeah. Take it.
Hold it.
I was like, why did she say hold it? What did I do? Oh shit, I just got a new code. Oh, it's almost.
This place is new.
Almost documents, but not. I don't know how I feel about the shoulder. Okay, look.
That elevator leads to our destination. I know you
I've
can
been
do
waiting
for you. Please, spin a thread of memory for me.
Elevators to the final area, so I have another vestige I need to find for that.
Forgive me, my successor. I promised that I would defend you. As your attendant, it was my duty. But I could not prevent your frenzy. In the end, I failed you.
Oh yeah, good.
I could do nothing more than watch as your death finally came for you. Why was I even here? What purpose did I serve?
He's like, I tried to do the one thing. I couldn't, and now I'm sad.
This attendant lost their successor to frenzy, and then succumbed to it themselves. we can do is stand by and watch, while we lose the ones we've been charged to protect, then does our presence serve any purpose? As attendants, what good do we do?
I mean, you helped me out. I can't complain. Oh, yeah. It's okay.
Nothing gets past you, huh? Look at that.
There's another path to the left. There's another path here.
I've been waiting for you.
That's all. That's okay. We can figure things.
There's a surprise.
Let's mark this. Confused.
We found something valuable today.
Right there, sometimes they show.
Enemy spotted.
Oh,
Be
is
careful.
that the field boss? This fucking asshole. The Mistle back there too. So I can camouflage past him, right? Camo. It's out.
Such a menace. Over here.
Goodbye, bitch. Oh, you fucking kidding me? That's so rude. Fuck you. I think I didn't try to fight him and then have like no health and try to run past him and then get popped by that. That would have been very upsetting. Like, it was already rude enough.
I believe we can climb that.
that. Here, and then I can go turn this quest in. And after that, probably. Oh, there's a ladder to kick down. Son of a bitch. Is it back over here? Is this the only way I can
I was
access
looking
it?
at something.
This guy? Oh, I forgot all about the fucking thing. I can't even go up that way anyway. God damn it. The fucking tentacle things. That's so rude.
This is a bit scary. Just as I expected. That ladder looks like it can be lowered.
Wait, no. Not from the field boss spot. Okay. It's good to know. Okay. Alright, let's see if I can get to this NPC to turn in. What? Still. Yes. I'm gonna come back for that field boss. I'm gonna beat his ass. We'll do it together, Havoc. Get our revenge, it'll be sweet. So, yeah. It might be here. Person. Ooh, presents. Yeah.
Quite a view, isn't it?
So.
They are lost patrolling. Something
Use
good.
the gun as a gun.
Watch for blood-sucking roots near bodies.
Oh, great.
Found something
Yes.
valuable today.
It was tungsten. It was worth it. Oh, no. Oh, yes.
That's a lot of. That was a bit of a workout.
Let's see. You found documents on board parasite compatibility. Back then, we needed cooperation from revenants with high compatibility more than anything. Around that time, we got a report about a girl whose compatibility was off the charts. Her name was Cruz Silva, Gregorio Silva's daughter, the person who would later become the queen. Silva is a parent. No parent would want their child to be the subject of an experiment. But Cruz was adamant. She wanted to save people, and so she volunteered for the research. Her compatibility made everything go smoothly, and many advances that were made still help us today. But then, she frenzied. My word. These are written directives from Operation Queenslayer. When Silva was still human, he told me to follow them if something happened to him. When Silva died during the Queen's frenzy, we turned him into a revenant as quickly as we could. He awakened immediately and set out to eliminate her. To me, it seemed like he cast aside all his personal feelings toward his daughter at that moment. Do you find it strange for a human to be here? Silva unequivocally told me that I mustn't become a revenant. He said that if revenants couldn't resolve the situation, then a human point of view would be necessary. I never thought that would come to pass, though. I was expecting to live out my remaining days in peace. Life does take unexpected turns. Thank you. This is a survey report on the Red Mist. Silva turned himself into a successor and used his power to create the Red Mist.
Yeah, seriously.
The most important reason to maintain the Red Mist is to ensure the Queen's power spreads no further. However, Silva continually expends a great deal of energy to do this. Thus, the levy system was put into place in order to ensure the blood that he requires. The Red Mist, the levy system, and his research. Silva has done all of this for the sake of revenants.
At all?
Thank you again. Now I have all of the documents. I intend to analyze all the information they contain once more. Silva is on the verge of frenzy, which means the Queen could be resurrected. I have to come up with a plan to break us out of this situation. I hate to impose on your good nature, but if it is possible, please go check on Silva.
I want to know how the hell you're still alive in this area. I've been struggling as a revenant. Sounds. Increases your stamina regeneration rate. Yep. Yeah, seriously. Alright, let me teleport back to a Mistel here. I will have to look up where this last vestige is. Yeah. Alright, let me go ahead and throw you guys to the lobby so we can wrap up here. Alright, so I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me while I played some more Code Vein here. We made some good progress. We don't have too much more to do here until the end. I will spare you guys from the grinding as much as possible and grind off screen. I will be back tomorrow at the same, well, actually at the normal time of 2:30 p.m. EST to work on my fan art of Yakumo and Emily some more. So if you enjoyed this game, you want to see some cool art of it, I'll be working on it tomorrow. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please follow me to see when I go live. Consider subscribing. That would help me tremendously if you love my content. And I hope you have a great night. I'll catch you later. Bye bye bye.